Spider-Man's got some of the most creative and diverse villains in all the comic books. We've got illusionist sorcerers like Mysterio, animal hybrids like Lizard, gadgeteer geniuses like Shocker, alien symbiotes, living elementals. Everyone in this rogues gallery's got something imaginative going on, through powers, designs, or characterization. And sometimes the idea behind a bad guy is so good, you can't use it just once. Dust that bad boy off, and use it again. So let's have a look at a couple knockoff Spider-Man villains, just for fun. First then, we've got a fresh, forked-tongued foe for Spidey, making his debut in Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man, issue 32, Rage of the Reptile. At the Empire State University's biology lab, the Night Watchman finds out he's got some creepy crawly company. Something long and clammy snaps his torch from his hands, and the cold light reveals something so horrifying that the guard shoots to kill. Whatever this monster is, even bullets can't pierce its hide. This beast stomps off, leaving the guard in fear, but he's not the only one terrified. Dr. Curt Connor lurks nearby. His nightmare only just beginning. The very next day, another familiar face walks the hallowed halls of ESU, Peter Parker. He's starting his tenure at Empire State as a teaching assistant, but he's pulled from his tour by a strange light in the bio lab. It's Dr. Connors, and Peter's caught him tinkering with his innovator device patent pending. This is the man that once unleashed the lizard upon the Florida Everglades, so I would be very suspicious of what he's up to now. Peter and his tour guide help Connors up, but when Peter hands the doc one of his cold-blooded buddies, he starts flapping it. No one notices the reptile's eyes glow like the innovator, but no spider senses tingle, so maybe we're in the clear. Oh, never mind, because the next page, Peter's internal monologue claims his spider sense is indeed tingling as they walk with the doc and his little pet to the zoo. And it tingles for good reason, because this caged iguana locks eyes with Connors and suddenly the man is possessed. The doc legs it, but Parker is in pursuit. Ooh, that crafty Connors has ran into a prohibited area of the reptile dark house, so Peter's gotta drop the chase, but it's picked right back up by the Spectacular Spider-Man. We don't need a spider sense to know that Connors acting weird around reptiles can only bring trouble. The doc can struggle no longer, he falls to the ground, and up rises a horror with a hiss. And then Spider-Man stumbles across Dr. Connors. Curt is out cold on the reptile room floor, so then who, or what, strikes at Spidey from the shadows? Spider-Man is sure that it's the lizard currently trying to claw out his throat, but that's impossible. Dr. Connors is the lizard, and he's unconscious. Whatever this thing is, it speaks pretty good English, as it threatens to murder the webhead. It's just like the lizard, but it's not the lizard. And that, Spider-Man, is because you're fighting the indisputable, incomprehensible, inhospitable horror that is the Iguana. Oh boy, look at this cover. How's Spidey getting out of this one? Punch that snake, Spider-Man. Now I can't stress enough that I am not a scientist, but surely just because an iguana has the intelligence of a man doesn't mean it could talk actual English. They don't have the right vocal cords, do they? Scientists, is this real? Not only can this reptile terror speak, it seems to have a psychic connection to Dr. Connors, and thanks to Curt's memories, Iguana already knows how to handle Spider-Man. Can you believe Dr. Connors is still doing reptile crap after accidentally turning himself into a lizard on more than one occasion? You'd think he would have learned his lesson. Now though, instead of going from man to reptile, he's somehow flipped the script. But this doesn't hold the same weight as the lizard stuff, because it's one thing to not want to kill a human being, even if the human being's turned himself into a lizard. But this iguana thing, this is like if a rabid dog went at you I don't think anyone would fault Spidey for killing in self-defense here. Especially now that this scaly son of a bitch is threatening the whole city. He's got Lizard's reptile mind control power too, so the snakes and the crocs and the Komodo dragons all go to see the sights of New York. It's Discount Lizard. He's got all the Lizard's powers and looks just like the Lizard. It's the Lizard. But normally when he's fighting the Lizard, Spider-Man always has that fear of hurting the man within. Something we don't need to worry about with Iguana. So as soon as Connors is away safe, Spidey can let loose. Another weakness unique to Iguana, he can't stand the light, blinded by justice. This fanged fear runs away, while Peter wrangles the reptiles in his own unique way. Later on, back at Empire State University, Connors has some explaining to do, and it all comes down to his fantastical innovator device. The definition of the word innovator is to make someone feel drained of energy, but Curt's machine actually did the exact opposite in Amazing Spider-Man 146. Clearly, Connors hasn't learned his lesson regarding the slimy stranglehold the Lizard had on his life. He tries again to regrow his missing arm, but this time he uses a marine iguana. Very different. Only the Innovator's rays drew out this parcel-tongued persona's mindset and deposited it into the iguana. So it's not that he's a copy of the Lizard. Mentally, he literally is the Lizard. Okay. That means it knows how Connors thinks. It knows he's going to try and take the iguana down. Connors and his family are now in the crosshairs. Spidey swings off to warn Billy and I think Martha. Is it Martha? Ooh, look, in the middle panel, he shoots a web without doing the right hand gesture. Oh, and also, in fear for his family, Dr. Connors decides to fight Fang with Fang, willingly using his innovator to become the Lizard. Oh no, the iguana has already slithered into the Connors house. Iguana wants to use the Connorses as human shields, but he's about to shed some crocodile tears. Here comes the Spider-Man. This monster talks a good game, but he's not the only one with thick skin. Unfortunately, Billy Connors doesn't have the proportionate strength of a spider, so Iguana's tail nearly smacks him into a red smear. Luckily, Peter's a professional, but now that the baby's been hurt, Big Daddy's on his way. The Lizard, Lex. Spidey may have saved Billy, but who's gonna save him? The second that Peter's eyes were off Iguana was all the creature needed to snake his tail around Spidey's neck. And it looks like our hero's troubles are only just beginning. Get ready for Reptile Rumble 1979. Cool cover, and it actually happens in the issue. That's always a plus, I like when they do that. Mate, if the Lizard had been like 1 minute late, Spider-Man would have actually died here. Bet he kicks himself over this for years. Oh, that's quite funny. The captions here say Curt's wife is named Mrs. Curt Connors. They're both named Curt. How odd. Nah, I'm kidding, it was Martha. Her brief begging for an end to this serpentine showdown distracts the Lizard long enough for Iguana to bite back. First Billy with Spidey and now this. All the Connors family have done this story is distract the heroes. The fight flings the two monsters from the rooftops and crashes them through the city streets. So of course we end up where it seems every Lizard story ends up. The sewers. Spidey follows, but the Beast Men are long gone. So what does Peter do in the downtime between duels? Have a nap? Get lunch? Hell no, he's right back to ESU, reconstructing Connor's Innovator, the machine that caused this whole mess, into something that just might fix it. Equipped with an Innovator that now looks like it's from Ghostbusters, Spidey combs the sewers for his forked-tongued foes, and it isn't long before they find Spidey instead. Oh my god, now they're suddenly best mates! I do suppose that makes sense. As I said before, they are basically the same brain. Now it's two strong serpent supervillains against just one friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. So it's a lucky thing Pete doesn't have to fight them physically. The Innovator saps the Lizard's strength from the mortal form of Curt Connors. Good old one arm crumbles to the ground, but the machine had the opposite effect on Iguana. No longer sharing the Lizard's power between bodies, Iguana's more powerful than ever. All according to the friendly neighborhood spider plan. The iguana's body can't contain the pure power, the sheer energy being funneled into it. The beast explodes, and the terror of the iguana is finished forever. Or is it? So yeah mate, lizard ×2. At least they were honest. Marvel knew they were just giving us the lizard again, so they leaned into it. And honestly, it was done in a cool way, having them fight the original. Quite cool. More or less this same story will be told again later, when Spidey and Venom team up to take down Carnage. Only Venom and Carnage have never been mates. The video game for the Amazing Spider-Man film in 2012 took the concept of Iguana and absolutely ran with it, making nearly every animal-themed villain a humanoid beast rather than power armor or a mutated man. I think that's a bit of a bad idea, because there's no villain banter when they can only growl. It's like the vet being snarky when he puts down your dog. The thing can't make a retort, so it's not really fair. Who's our next copycat criminal? Next we've got the Hydro Man, Morrie Bench. The itsy bitsy spider's gonna regret climbing up this water spout. So kind of obviously this guy is a replacement for the most literally filthiest criminal in Spidey's rogues, the Sandman. Even to the point where these two were once literally one being. Know what, I'll cover that one in a minute for the banter, but for now, let's check out the wet and wild debut of the Hydro Man in the Amazing Spider-Man issue 212. Issue 211 ended with Spidey almost lost at sea thanks to that dick Namor. Our webbed wonder was out in the blue helping Deborah Whitman's uncle run his cargo ship. And now the Submariner has been dealt with, they can crack on with the real reason for coming out, testing some experimental undersea generator. A cheeky plop in the drink and we should all be good. But that wouldn't make an interesting comic. A power cable snaps and lashes out. Oh no wait, actually it's quite stupid. Spidey pushes a few crates out the way, but he ends up bumping a fella into the water without noticing while he does it. Spidey's pushed this man off the boat and into the water that's supercharged with the experimental rays from the generator. So it's Spidey's fault, yeah. I mean, obviously Spidey dives in when he realises what's happened. And he even rescues the man in time. Miraculously, the sailor, Morrie Bench, is still alive. Good job, Spider-Man. He saved the day again. Let's hope Jameson never learns about this. Morrie, mate, you're sweating like Skip Westcott in a primary school. Calm down. And calm down, Morrie does, by going for a good pint. Go ahead, lad. Talk about drowning your sorrows. Something seems wrong with Mr. Bench. He can't stop sweating. He's absolutely dripping. And it's not from this Sadie bed, I'll tell you that. No way, dude. The man literally melts on his stool and the bartender doesn't give a crap. I don't think he even noticed. Christ, that's pretty funny, like. Oh, he's fine, mate. Look, he's fine. This is actually quite funny to me. Usually, after an origin, a comic character will either be like, wowzer, I've got superpowers, or like, by the gods, what monster have I become? But Bench is just like, ah, shit, I'm weird. At least he seems to understand what changed him, so he oozes off to find Spider-Man and Whitman to send them to a watery grave. Oh, and between you and I, don't forget about Bench's trashy little tart Sadie. More on her later. Hydro Man scours the city in search of Spidey in a way only he could. This is a goofy page, but it highlights how threatening Morrie could become. He could show up anywhere. If he was after you, you would never be safe. The 90s cartoon took this hardcore where he was stalking Mary Jane. Actually, Hydro Man in that was a bigger personal villain to Peter than Doc Ock. That's funny, innit? Speaking of Peter, he learns of the wet threat from Robbie Robertson. But the more immediate threat seems to be Jonah Jameson trying to bang Pete's girl. What's this about, Jonah? Calm it. Spider-Man does a cheeky bit of bathroom peeping. And then, we're finally at the action! Sploosh goes the Spider-Man, and don't ask me why, but after spending ages hunting Spidey down, Hydro Man runs away like a little bitch as soon as he finds him. What was the point in that? When they said Hydro Man was wet, I didn't know they meant his pants. Peter uses the Daily Bugle to call Hydro Man out again, so it's not long before they're back at it, but what was the point? Was all that just to fill a single page? You could have just had that fight lead into this fight. So go on, how does one fight water? It's a really hot day in the middle of summer, so we can't just freeze them. The sponge factory's on the other side of town. I left my bendy straw at home, and now I really need a piss. If you've seen the 90s cartoon, you should, because it's boss. You already know what Spidey's doing here. He's keeping Bench in the sun and warming him up, setting in motion what we like to call the water cycle. He's slowly evaporating. This never would have happened if he lived in England. He would have been fine. Paroxysm? What the hell does that mean? Hydro Man becomes a lovely afternoon drizzle, but it's far from over yet. I think if the lizard and the iguana can be friends, there's hope for these two as well. Few issues later, Spidey's already worn out from a bang-up of gun-wielding thugs, so now seems an opportune time to wet Hydro Man's whistle. The living liquid lunatic lives! That web-headed wuss can only scamper away, desperate to flee the flood. Oh, but his time will come. Hydro Man guarantees it. Morrie's got more problems than just Spidey. His lady, Sadie, is getting handy with Sandy. Flint Marko, you dog. It appears, gentlemen, that we must resort to fisticuffs. That Sans scallywag has stolen our Hydro Hero's woman. Genuinely, who do you think should win this fight? Marko's weakness is water, but Bench's is getting dry, so I can see this going either way. But anyway, this fight is no day at the beach for sweet Sadie. She actually seems to me like the type of girl who'd try and take them both home at once. Oh look, that's exactly what she does. Slag. Sadie even suggests they team up, not on air, on Spidey. Though the two aren't mates just yet. Bench I can understand, but you're telling me the friggin' Sandman can't do better than someone like Sadie? He's buff as hell and he's got cool powers, and he was briefly Norman Osborn's cousin once, remember that? This so-called truce they've got for Sadie's sake only lasts until they get into her house. But before either villain can do any real damage, Spider-Man offers them a better target. Spidey, mate. Why? I don't think either of these two can actually die, so you probably should just let them sort each other out. A room full of elemental super criminals, and it's Sadie who gets the best shot on Spidey. Our dazed webhead tries to escape, but the dynamic duo of Hydro and Sandman take the fight to the streets. Peter gets rocked all the way to the docks, and now he's boxed in. This pair of powered punks both dive at Spidey, ready to live every New York criminal's dream. But good old Deadly Dodgin does it again. These idiots smash right into each other. You got water in me sand? Well, you got sand in my water. Rest easy, Spidey, the fight is won. So then why's our spider sense still tingling? Oh. This man, this mud monster, swats Spider-Man aside like he's an insect and leaves, lumbering off to the only place Hydro Man and Sandman ever agreed on. The home of slutty Sadie. You've all seen King Kong, haven't you? That's this issue. It's King Kong. Watch. The monster grabs its lady love, but before it can get to the Empire State Building, it stands down. Next week we're in court and Matt Murdock himself defends the Mudman, claiming it's a whole new being and has broken no laws. What? This issue really took a turn, didn't it? Sadie and her marvellous Mudman even get an agent, a man called Travis Rave who promises to make them all famous. Did you see any of this coming when Spidey fought Hydro Man a few issues ago? No word of a lie, Sadie gets on Broadway, luckiest prostitute since Pretty Woman. All's well that ends well. Sure, Morrie Bench and Flint Marko essentially died to become this big, brainless abomination, but Sadie and Spidey can now live happily ever after. Wrong! That harlot Sadie just couldn't keep it in her pants. A smooch to Travis awakens a primal rage within the Mud Monster. This cooked creature goes berserk. Good for him, he's standing up for himself. Don't let that bitch disrespect you, Mud Monster. Oh, speaking of cooks, here comes the Spider-Man, probably triggered after all that Paul crap. Yeah mate, look, see? King Kong. Maybe we can get Jack Black for Travis Rave in the MCU. Helicopters bomb the monster to dust, leaving poor Sadie to splatter on the ground thousands of feet below. Joking, Spidey obviously catches her. More than she deserves, honestly. If she'd not been so horny for supervillains, this never would have happened. 'Twas the bomb that killed the beast. But while the sum is dead, the components live on. In Marvel 2-in-1 86. A thing in Sandman issue, so we'll be brief. It takes a few weeks, but look, the fine. Calm down, the fine. Haha, but the experience was so awful. Hydro Man might just pack villainy in altogether. Banter make good luck. So that was the horrific, hazardous, heavy-flowing Hydro Man. A mook if there ever was one. No master plans, no high-profile heists, just a dumb fella out for himself, and that's fine. That can be very fun. Hydro Man's existence opens the door for us to properly reform the Sandman, a plotline Marvel foolishly regressed on more than once. Hit me with another bootleg bad guy. The Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 10 gives us this secondary Scorpion known as the Human Fly. Meet Richard Deacon, a repeat offender currently caught up in a standoff with the NYPD. The situation is tense and Deacon's crew have hostages. The police are deadlocked. But here comes the Spider-Man. Spidey eats punks like these for breakfast, they've got no chance here. So Mr. Deacon gets desperate. He grabs the girl and heaves her out as a human shield. The police can't touch him with such an itchy trigger finger. But Spider-Man snags the lady free. Richard Deacon gets blown away by the NYPD. But this is not the end of the story. His body isn't found thanks to the thick and creamy rivers of New York. And we turn our gaze towards another Spidey bad guy. Perhaps the greatest one of all. J. Jonah Jameson, as usual. Jonah is at boiling point when it comes to Spider-Man, so he's once again recruiting a scientist to create a superhero of Jonah's own to knock that wall crawler down a peg. Previously on Spider-Man, Jonah and Dr. Farley Stillwell created the sinister Scorpion in a mad plot for revenge, and now JJ clearly hasn't learned from his mistakes. Because now he's asking Stillwell's brother Harlan to do the exact same thing. The struggling scientist has no choice but to agree, because the funding is all he needs to make his masterpiece. A genetic warrior with the powers of a housefly. I mean, if Spider-Man's cool, maybe it'll work out. And there's a fun test subject for Harlan, the bloodied and dying Richard Deacon. And he's got a gun. Deacon will have this power, whether Harlan wants him to or not. Forced at gunpoint, Harlan Stillwell repeats the process that got his brother murdered, empowering an evil man with power beyond reason. Richard Deacon is transformed into the horrifyingly freakish Human Fly. Nice pajamas, dude. Mere hours pass and we're once again with JJ as he checks on Stillwell, only to find him, well, still. Dead still. And before Jonah can flee the scene, the Fly can intervene. This buzzing bastard wants JJ as bait to lure in his new nemesis, the Amazing Spider-Man. This is literally the Scorpion issue again. I don't know who wrote this angle, but Stan Lee should sue the pants off him. Oh no, don't have checked, it's Len Wein, he's boss, leave him alone. Deacon doesn't just want Spidey dead, he wants the world to watch it happen. He tells the Daily Bugle to tell Spider-Man to meet him at the Coliseum at midnight, or J. Jonah Jameson gets buzzed off for good. The balls on the Fly is at his powers 10 minutes and he thinks he can rumble with the webhead. Kick his ass, Spider-Man. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, Spider-Man. What's this dude's powers anyway? Just wings. Ever heard of the Vulture, you little chump? Oh wait, did I actually explain this fella's powers? It's a bit more complicated than just the usual super strength and wings. He can let loose a supersonic buzz that causes a shockwave. He's got 360-degree compound eyes, and, get onto this, he can fly. But the main thing is the wings, so it's actually quite an easy scrap for Spidey when he webs up the fly's main means of motion. Dude, look how huge Spidey looks in this panel. I wouldn't want to fight him. Trapped in a web of his own hubris, the Fly steps into Spider-Man's parlour. Insects check in, but they don't check out. A poor man's Scorpion through and through. Can't believe how blatantly copy-paste the beginning of this story was. But unlike the other tales of today's video, Fly and Scorpion didn't actually meet. Fly does meet Venom way later on though. He was on Flash Thompson's Sinister Six surrogate, the Savage Six, so we do get some use out of him. I've got time for one more if we make it quick. If Norman Osborn, Dr. Octopus and Venom are the big three Spider-Man villains, Hobgoblin is absolutely number 4. This man terrorised Spider-Man all through the 80s, hardly an issue would go by without us checking in on Hobby and his partner in crime, the Rose, as they tried to wrestle control in New York's underworld for themselves. In fact, it's a disservice to call Hobgoblin a knockoff, because he's so unlike the Green Goblin in nearly every way, and I genuinely like the Hobgoblin more than his Emerald counterpart. I love this fella's story so much that I'm not really going to go deep into them here. He's going to get his own focus pretty soon. So instead, I'm going to give a brief rundown on what makes the Hobgoblin so goddamn cool. Throughout the 80s, which is to me far and away the greatest period of Spidey stories, Hobgoblin was the main threat. There's a whole run of issues starting with 238 and ending with 251 that's just incredible. Hobgoblin chances into the dead Norman Osborn's goblin gear, styles it up and uses it to gain power and wealth in the criminal lifestyle. You see, Hobgoblin doesn't do what he does for revenge, or because he's driven mad by the world around him or some other cringy crap. He does this gig to get them papers. Hardly an issue went by where he didn't make an appearance, but his main aim was to take over the New York criminal underworld, teaming up with the crime boss known as the Rose, another fantastic villain. These two got up to some mischief, mate, even if every issue ended with them plotting against each other. One time they kidnapped Liz Allen to blackmail Goblin secrets out of Harry. Another time they attacked the Kingpin's illegal gambling sites, forcing them to change allegiances. They were some full-on cheeky bastards. At first as well, he was more like an evil Batman. He had no real superpowers to speak of, yet he still outwitted Spidey in every fight, always escaping to haunt another day. And then, when he did unlock the secrets of Osborn's Goblin formula, he only went and perfected it. It gave him all the powers and none of the madness. He genuinely improved upon Norman's formula. An absolute chess master. Hobby always had a fall guy to take the heat off himself for a while. Guys like Flash Thompson, Ned Leeds and Lefty Donovan got all the blame, while the true man behind the mask got away free. In a time when Norman had been dead for years, Hobgoblin allowed Spidey to face a Halloween-themed maniac without all the baggage the Osborn family bring with them, and mate, honest to God, it couldn't have been done better. You want to know my theory? Marvel want an excuse for Spidey to fight all his cool baddies without needing to pay homage to the years of stories building up their rivalries. With the Hobgoblin, you can have Peter fight a flying madman with a bag of tricks without needing to worry about the complex history between Peter and the Osborns. Hydro Man taking Flint Marko's spot as the dumb muscle elemental frees up the Sandman to grow as a character, and grow he did. He joined Silver Sable's Wild Pack, and he even became an Avenger. Hell yeah, Sandman. The Human Fly. And who did we do first again? Sauron? No, Iguana. Iguana gave us a story where Curt Connor wasn't just Jekyll to Lizard's Hyde. For the start, anyway. It let us see Dr. Connors as more than a victim of his own scientific mistakes. Sometimes the knockoff can actually boost the original. I suppose you might want to count Carnage, but I wouldn't. He's so different from Venom character-wise, it's just the powers that are similar there. Who's your favourite bootleg baddie? Mine was clearly the Hobgoblin. Oh, and it's not just Marvel either, dude. DC's got a few of these. Clue Master to Riddler, Firebug to Firefly. I might do a Batman one of these.